The medical bay of the Celestial Traverse hummed with the sterile efficiency that defined Galactic Coalition vessels. But no amount of advanced technology could solve the problem that had the entire xenobiology team scrambling. 3 Valorian cubs, rescued from a derelict transport near the Outer Rim, refused to eat. Dr. Hannah Wells stood before the observation window, her arms crossed as she watched the small, fox-like creatures huddled in the corner of their enclosure. Their silvery fur was dull, their large eyes half-lidded with exhaustion. The smallest of the 3, a female cub the crew had named Tivy, pressed herself against her siblings, her fluffy tail wrapped protectively around her body. "They've rejected every nutritional supplement we've offered," said Commander Jess, his mandibles clicking in frustration. The Kravaxian officer's exoskeleton gleamed under the medical bay lights. "The molecular composition is perfect. The temperature is calibrated. We've even tried pheromone encouragement. Nothing works." Hannah turned from the window, her jaw set with determination. "Because you're treating them like biological machines that need fuel. They're children, Commander. Traumatized children who've lost everything." Jess's compound eyes flickered with what might have been confusion. "The nutritional paste contains all required." "It's not about requirements," Hannah interrupted, already moving toward the door. "It's about comfort. About something that feels like home." 20 minutes later, Hannah returned to the medical bay with an armful of supplies from her personal quarters and a requisition slip for the ship's agricultural section. The other xenobiologists watched with poorly concealed skepticism as she set up what appeared to be primitive cooking equipment on a side table. "Human, what are you doing?" asked Dr. Rillith, her crystalline form refracting light across the room. "The hygiene protocols are flexible in emergency situations," Hannah said firmly, pulling out a small portable heating unit. "And 3 starving cubs definitely qualify as an emergency." She worked quickly, her hands moving with practiced confidence. First, she filled a pot with clean water and set it to boil. Then came the ingredients: freeze-dried chicken from Earth's export catalog, fresh vegetables from the hydroponics bay, and a carefully selected array of herbs that she'd been growing in her quarters for exactly this kind of situation. The Valorian cubs were omnivorous, according to the database. Their digestive systems could handle a wide range of proteins and plant matter. But what the database couldn't tell her was what would speak to their souls. As the broth began to simmer, a rich, savory aroma filled the medical bay. Hannah added a pinch of salt, a grinding of pepper, and something the other species couldn't identify, that ineffable quality humans called love, that somehow made its way into food prepared with care. The effect was immediate. Tivy's nose twitched. Her ears, which had been flat against her skull for days, perked up slightly. She lifted her head, drawing in a long, careful breath. The other 2 cubs stirred as well, their attention suddenly focused on the source of that incredible smell. Hannah ladled the steaming broth into 3 shallow bowls, making sure each had plenty of tender meat and vegetables. She carried them to the enclosure's feeding hatch, moving slowly so as not to startle the cubs. "Come on, little ones," she murmured softly. "I know you're scared. I know nothing feels right anymore. But you need to eat. You need to be strong." Tivy was the first to move. She approached cautiously, her small body trembling with uncertainty. When she reached the bowl, she dipped her muzzle into the broth and took a tentative lick. Then her tail began to wiggle. It started as a small twitch, barely noticeable. But within seconds, Tivy's entire tail was swishing back and forth in unmistakable delight. She dove into the bowl with abandon, lapping up the broth with desperate enthusiasm. Her siblings, seeing her reaction, rushed forward to claim their own bowls. The medical bay erupted in relieved chatter. But Hannah barely heard it. She watched the cubs eat, her eyes stinging with unexpected tears. In that moment, surrounded by species that measured everything in data points and molecular structures, she was reminded why humanity had earned its place among the stars. It wasn't because humans were the strongest, or the smartest, or the most technologically advanced. It was because they understood something fundamental that many other species had lost or never possessed: The profound importance of small comforts in the face of overwhelming trauma. Commander Jess approached the window, his earlier skepticism replaced by something that might have been respect. "How did you know that would work?" Hannah smiled, watching as Tivy's tail continued its happy wiggling even as she licked the last drops from her bowl. "Because when I was 7, I was in a hospital for weeks after an accident. I was scared, alone, and everything hurt. The food was nutritionally perfect, but I couldn't eat it. Then my grandmother came and brought me her homemade chicken soup. It wasn't about the nutrients, Commander. It was about being cared for, about someone taking the time to make something special just for you." Dr. Villeth's crystalline form pulsed thoughtfully. "This concept, comfort food, it appears in your species' cultural records frequently. We assumed it was metaphorical. It's very real," Hannah said, "and it's one of humanity's greatest weapons against despair." Over the following days, the cubs thrived. Hannah prepared broth for them at every meal, varying the ingredients to ensure proper nutrition while maintaining that crucial element of warmth and care. Tivy, in particular, bonded with the human, her tail wagging enthusiastically whenever Hannah entered the medical bay. The story of the human who saved the Valorian cubs with Earth-style broth spread throughout the fleet. Other species began requesting her recipes, curious about this comfort food phenomenon. Hannah shared freely, though she always emphasized that the secret ingredient wasn't something that could be measured or replicated by machines. It was care, it was time, it was the willingness to see beyond biology and remember that intelligence, regardless of species, craved more than mere survival. 3 weeks later, when the cubs were healthy enough to be transferred to a Valorian sanctuary world, Tivy pressed her small body against the enclosure glass, one last time, her tail creating a gentle rhythm against the floor. Hannah placed her hand on the glass, meeting the cub's large, grateful eyes. "Be strong, little one," she whispered. "And remember, sometimes the best medicine isn't found in a laboratory. Sometimes it's found in a bowl of good, honest broth made by someone who cares." As the celestial traverse continued its journey through the stars, carrying its cargo of diverse species and infinite possibilities, Hannah Wells returned to her quarters. Tomorrow, she would submit a proposal to add comfort food specialists to the ship's roster of emergency personnel. Because in a galaxy that often felt cold and impossibly vast, humanity had learned something precious. That warmth could be shared, one bowl at a time, and that sometimes the most profound acts of kindness were also the simplest. And somewhere in the ship's database, a new entry was added to humanity's contribution to the Galactic Coalition, the revolutionary therapeutic technique of cooking with love, a concept that defied quantification but never failed to heal.